You wake up in the middle of nowhere. There is no Wi-Fi. There is no coffee. There is only wind, dust, and a man on horseback yelling something that sounds like "kuh" while pointing at your shoes, which are clearly not regulation Mongol footwear. You blink. You're in the Mongol Empire, circa 1206. Congratulations. You've time traveled into one of the most efficient, terrifying, and horse-powered civilizations in history. And you're already late for something. Your first mistake? Standing still. Mongols don't do idle. Within seconds, you're ushered toward a yurt, a felt-covered tent that smells like goat, ambition, and possibly regret. Inside, a family of 12 is eating breakfast. You're offered a bowl of erag, which is fermented mare's milk. It tastes like yogurt that's been emotionally neglected. You try to smile. Your stomach begins composing a formal complaint. You attempt to sit cross-legged. Your genes protest. Someone hands you a bow. You drop it. A child laughs. You've already lost face. Outside, the wind howls like a judgmental ancestor. You're told to mount a horse. You ask for a saddle. Everyone laughs. Mongols ride bareback. You climb on. The horse immediately senses your fear and begins a slow, mocking trot toward a pile of manure. You cling to its neck like a desperate koala. By noon, you've insulted a local elder by asking where the bathroom is. There is no bathroom. There is only the outside. You're given a shovel and a look that says, "Figure it out." You try to make small talk. Someone mentions Genghis Khan. You say, "Wasn't he kind of intense?" Silence. You've committed a cultural faux pas. You're reassigned to dung collecting duty. As the sun sets, you're cold, confused, and covered in horse-related regrets. You curl up in the corner of the yurt, next to a goat named Tomer. He snores. You envy his confidence. Welcome to the Mongol Empire. Land of galloping hooves, fermented mare's milk, and zero tolerance for whining. If you think medieval Europe was rough, wait until you're dodging arrows, sharing yurts with strangers, and trying to impress Genghis Khan with your ability to ride a horse for 18 hours straight. This is not your cozy, Netflix-era civilization. This is history's most relentless nomadic superpower. And you, dear listener, are about to fail spectacularly at surviving it. But don't worry, we'll fail slowly, sleepily, and with plenty of historical detours to lull you into slumber. So snuggle in, sip your imaginary yak milk, and if you enjoy drifting off to the sound of your own historical incompetence, go ahead and like, subscribe, and whisper sweet nothings to the algorithm. It's what Genghis would have wanted. Probably. You wake up to the sound of slurping. Not polite slurping, Mongol slurping. It's communal, enthusiastic, and vaguely threatening. The family is gathered around a low table, passing around bowls of something white, frothy, and suspiciously alive. You sit up. The goat is still using your foot as a pillow. You envy its digestive system. Someone hands you a bowl. It's erag again, fermented mare's milk. You sip. It tastes like yogurt that's been left in a philosophical crisis. It's sour, fizzy, and somehow warm. Your tongue begins composing a resignation letter. Next comes bortsog, fried dough that looks like a pastry and tastes like a dare. You chew. It's dry, dense, and oddly comforting, like a snack designed by someone who's never met butter, but believes in its legend. Then, the meat arrives. It's borts, dried and salted to the point of existential despair. You gnaw on a piece. It fights back, You lose. A child offers you a smaller piece. Out of pity, you accept. You are now the chewer. You ask if there's fruit. The grandmother laughs so hard, she snorts into her tea. You are handed more meat. The tea, by the way, is sautéed sai, milk tea with salt. You sip. Your taste buds begin negotiations with your brain. The goat watches, unimpressed. You try to be polite. You say, Someone takes this as enthusiasm and refills your bowl. You are now drowning in dairy. Outside, the wind howls, like it's hungry too. You consider offering it your leftovers. A man begins telling a story about Genghis Khan's breakfast habits. You nod along, pretending to understand. You hear the words raw liver and horse broth. You smile weakly. Your stomach begins googling escape routes. You attempt to stand. Your legs disagree. You sit back down. The child throws another piece of meat at you. You catch it. Everyone cheers. You are now the catcher. As breakfast ends, you're handed a leather pouch filled with more arag for the road. You thank them. The pouch leaks. You are now the damp one. You awaken to the sound of snoring. Not gentle snoring, Mongol snoring. It's rhythmic, thunderous, and somehow harmonized with the wind outside. You're lying on a pile of wool that may or may not be a blanket. A goat is using your foot as a pillow. You try to move. The goat disapproves. Welcome to the yurt, the traditional Mongol home. It's round, made of felt, and smells like ambition, livestock, and last night's dinner. There are no doors, just flaps. No rooms, just zones. And no boundaries, just vibes. You sit up and immediately make eye contact with a stranger. He nods. You nod. Neither of you knows what the other is doing here. That's yurt life. Everyone's invited. No one's consulted. The family you're staying with consists of a grandmother who's been awake since 3 a.m. and is already churning something suspicious. A child who throws dried meat at you for sport. A man who hasn't blinked since you arrived. And a woman who keeps offering you bortsog, fried dough, with the intensity of a hostage negotiator. You try to find a corner to change clothes. There is no corner. You attempt a subtle wardrobe adjustment under a blanket. The goat watches, judgingly. The yurt's central hearth is both a source of warmth and a passive-aggressive smoke machine. Your eyes water. Someone hands you a cup of sautéed sai, salty milk tea. You sip. It tastes like regret and warm ocean. You ask if there's a bathroom. The grandmother laughs so hard, she drops her churn. You're handed a shovel. Again. Outside, the wind is doing its usual performance art. You step out and immediately lose your hat. A child retrieves it and demands payment in the form of a song. You sing something vaguely resembling Twinkle, Twinkle. The child is unimpressed. Back inside, the yurt is now hosting a small council meeting. You are not invited, but you are present. Someone discusses horse logistics. Someone else discusses goat logistics. You try to contribute by suggesting a spreadsheet. You are reassigned to quiet sitting. As night falls, the yurt becomes a sleepover for 12. You lie between a man who talks in his sleep and a sheep who also talks in its sleep. You try to drift off, but the felt walls creak like they're gossiping about you. You wake up to the sound of hooves, not distant, poetic hooves. Immediate, aggressive hooves. A horse is staring at you through the yurt flap. You stare back. It blinks, slowly, like it knows you're not ready. Today is riding day. You're not prepared. A man hands you a bridle. and says something that probably translates to, "Good luck, soft-footed one." You smile politely and try to remember everything you've ever learned from watching medieval movies. You approach the horse. It snorts. You snort back. It's a tense moment. You ask for a saddle. Everyone laughs. Mongols ride bareback. Saddles are for people who fear intimacy with their mount. You climb on. The horse immediately begins moving. You are not ready. Your thighs begin composing a sonnet titled, "Why Have You Betrayed Us?" The ride is bumpy. The wind is rude. The horse is judgmental. You bounce like a sack of regret tied to a galloping regret machine. Your guide demonstrates how to shoot an arrow while riding. You attempt the same. You drop the bow. You drop the arrow. You nearly drop yourself. A child, watching from a nearby hill, gives you a score of 2 out of 10. Generous. You ask how long the ride will last. The answer is, until the sun gets bored. You weep internally. You pass a herd of wild horses. They look majestic. Your horse looks annoyed. You apologize. It ignores you. Lunch is served mid-ride. It's dried meat and arag again. You try to eat while bouncing. You end up wearing most of it. You are now the sticky one. Your guide tells you about Mongol cavalry tactics. You nod, pretending to understand. You hear the words feigned retreat and surround and destroy. You smile weakly and try not to fall off. By late afternoon, your legs have entered a state of philosophical detachment. You are no longer riding the horse. The horse is riding you. You dismount. You collapse. The horse walks away, unimpressed. You whisper, "I miss chairs." Back at the yurt, the goat greets you like you've returned from war. You lie down, legs trembling, soul humbled. You dream of saddles, seat cushions, and the sweet, sweet stillness of not moving. You wake up to shouting. Not motivational shouting. Urgent, war prep shouting. The yurt flap flies open. A man tosses you a helmet that smells like fear and fermented leather. You are told you're joining a raid. You ask, "Is this optional?" The answer is a laugh and a horse. You mount your steed. It remembers you from yesterday. It is not pleased. The warriors around you are calm, focused, and terrifyingly competent. You are wearing your fur hat backwards and holding your bow like it's a musical instrument. A general rides past and gives you a look that says, "You will not survive." The raid begins. Horses thunder across the steppe. Arrows fly. You scream internally. You try to shoot. You drop your bow. It bounces off a rock and hits a goat. The goat glares. You are now the clumsy one. You attempt to retrieve your bow. You dismount. Your horse leaves. You are now the abandoned one. You run after the warriors, trying to look useful. You trip over a saddlebag. You land in a bush. The bush is thorny. You are now the prickly one. A general asks you to light a signal fire. You accidentally light your sleeve. You wave it around. Everyone thinks it's a new tactic. You are briefly promoted, then demoted. You try to rally morale by shouting something inspirational. It comes out as, "Let's gently inconvenience them." A warrior snorts. You are reassigned to goat herding. The goat you hit earlier is named Destiny. Destiny is vengeful. Destiny headbutts you into a puddle. You are now the damp one again. The raid ends in victory. You contributed nothing. You are thanked with a bowl of arag and a pat on the back that feels like a warning. Back at camp, you're asked to recount your experience. You say, "I learned a lot." You did not. You lie down next to Destiny. Destiny snores. You envy its confidence. As sleep creeps in, you dream of padded armor, gentle hobbies, and a world where goats don't hold grudges. You wake up to a commotion, not a gentle morning bustle, a full-blown, horse-powered, armor-clanking, historically significant commotion. Word has spread. Genghis Khan is nearby. The man, the myth, the empire builder with a charisma score of 100 and a tolerance for nonsense of exactly 0. You're told to prepare for an audience. You ask, should I dress formally? Someone hands you a fur hat and a bow. You are now the hopeful one. You arrive at the camp. It's organized chaos. Soldiers sharpening weapons, horses snorting with purpose, and a man juggling knives. For reasons unknown, you're ushered into a tent that smells like leather, ambition, and mild intimidation. Genghis Khan sits at the center. He's not what you expected. He's calm, calculating, and radiates the kind of energy that makes you want to apologize for things you haven't done yet. You bow awkwardly. He raises an eyebrow. You attempt a greeting in Mongolian. It comes out sounding like, I am a confused potato. A scribe snorts. You are now the potato. He asks what skills you bring to the empire. You mention spreadsheets, social media strategy, and a strong appreciation for oat milk. Silence. A guard coughs. You are reassigned to arrow retrieval duty. Your job? Stand behind the archers and fetch arrows. Not glamorous, not safe. You spend the afternoon dodging stray shots and trying not to cry in historical font. You attempt a small talk with a fellow arrow fetcher. He tells you he used to be a goat herder until he insulted a general's horse. You nod solemnly. You understand. At one point, you try to impress the Khan by demonstrating your agile project management. You organize the arrows by color. A warrior asks why. You say, for morale. You are now the colorful one. Genghis Khan passes by. You smile. He does not. You drop an arrow. It rolls into a fire. You pretend it was intentional. No one believes you. As the sun sets, you're covered in dust, disappointment, and the faint scent of roasted arrow. You return to the yurt, where the goat greets you like a disappointed mentor. You lie down, wondering if your ancestors are watching. If they are, they're probably laughing. You wake up itchy, not metaphorically itchy, literally itchy. Your skin has formed a coalition against the yurt's wool, the goat's breath, and the mysterious puddle you fell into during yesterday's raid. You whisper to yourself, I need a bath. The goat snorts in disapproval. You ask your host where you can wash. He blinks, slowly, like you've just asked where the nearest sushi bar is. He gestures vaguely toward the outside. You're handed a bucket, a cloth, and a look that says, we'll be watching. You find a quiet spot near a stream. You begin to scrub. The water is cold. The cloth is judgmental. You lather up with a bar of soap you smuggled in from the future. It smells like lavender and rebellion. A child appears. He stares. He calls for backup. Soon, a small crowd gathers. They whisper. You hear the words sorcery, foam, and why is he wet on purpose? You try to explain. You say, it's for hygiene. Someone asks if that's a type of goat. You are now the goat washer. A warrior approaches. He asks if you're preparing for a ritual. You say, no, just rinsing off. He nods solemnly and backs away slowly. You are now the ritualist. You return to camp, damp and mildly traumatized. Your hair is clean. Your reputation is not. The grandmother offers you a towel made of something that might be yak. You accept. It smells like history. At dinner, no one sits next to you. You are the wet one. The goat refuses eye contact. You try to make light of it. You say, I feel refreshed. A man asks if you've been cursed. You say, possibly. That night, you lie awake, clean but socially contaminated. You dream of bathtubs, loofahs, and a world where soap isn't suspicious. You're handed a scroll. It's sealed with wax and mystery. A Mongol commander says, take this to the next station. Ride fast, don't stop. You nod solemnly. You're now a courier. You're also wildly unqualified. You mount a horse. It senses your fear. You whisper, we're in this together. The horse snorts and bolts. You are now airborne. The Mongol postal system, the Yam, is the envy of the medieval world. Relay stations every 25 miles. Fresh horses, guards, maps. You have none of these. You have a scroll, a horse with commitment issues, and a vague sense of direction. You ride for hours. You pass a yurt. You wave. They throw fermented mare's milk at you. You take it as encouragement. You reach a fork in the road. One path leads to the station. The other leads to a ravine. You choose poorly. You tumble. The scroll flies. You land in a bush that smells like regret. A goat watches. You are now the bushman. You climb out. You limp. You find the scroll. It's intact, but now smells faintly of goat. You remount. The horse sighs. You arrive at the station. The guard asks, what took you so long? You say, I took the scenic route. He says, this was urgent. You say, so was the ravine. You hand over the scroll. He opens it. It says, send more arrows. You realize you risked your life for punctuation. You are offered fermented milk as a reward. You drink it. It tastes like speed and disappointment. That night, you dream of GPS, paved roads, and a world where messages are sent by tapping glass. You wake up to another scroll. This one says, try again. You wake up groggy. The goat snores beside you. You stretch, yawn, and mutter, I could use a slow day. The universe hears you. It laughs. A warrior spots your yawn. He approaches. He says, you look idle. You say, just tired. He says, perfect. You'll fletch arrows. You are now the fletcher. You are handed feathers, shafts, and glue, made from something that once mooed. You sit cross-legged. You begin. You glue a feather upside down. You are corrected by a child. You are now the incompetent adult. Hours pass. Your fingers stick together. You sneeze. Feathers fly. A warrior says, you're wasting war. You apologize to the arrows. You try to take a break. You sip fermented milk. It tastes like punishment. You yawn again. A woman says, you must be hungry. You say, not really. She hands you a bucket. You churn butter. You are now the churner. You churn for eternity. Your arms revolt. You whisper, I miss boredom. The goat nods in solidarity. You attempt to sneak away. You tiptoe past the yurt. You are spotted. A man says, you look restless. You say, I'm meditating. He says, perfect. You'll clean saddles. You are now the polisher. You polish leather until it shines like betrayal. You reflect on your choices. You remember Netflix. You cry softly into a saddle. That night, you lie awake. Your hands twitch from fletching. Your dreams are filled with arrows chasing you through butter. You wake up. You yawn. A child hands you a broom. And if you're still awake, still overworked, and still wondering how a single yawn turned into a full-time medieval internship, go ahead and like, subscribe, and sweep the algorithm with your weary hands. It's always watching. just like the warrior who assigned you butter duty. You smell meat, roasting, sizzling, glorious meat. Your stomach sings. You follow the scent like a cartoon character floating toward pie. You arrive at a large yurt. Inside, warriors, elders, and enough fermented mare's milk to drown a small village. You step in. Heads turn. A hush falls. You smile and wave. You are now the waver. A man gestures to a seat. You sit. It's warm. Too warm. You've just taken the place of a minor noble. He returns. He stares. You offer him your seat. He declines. You are now the usurper. The host approaches. He asks who invited you. You say, the smell. He says, that's not a person. You nod. He nods. You are escorted to the edge of the yurt. You are now the perimeter guest. A bowl is placed in front of you. It contains something white, chunky, and vaguely sentient. You ask what it is. They say, it's tradition. You eat it. It tastes like sour history. A toast begins. Everyone raises their cups. You raise yours. You say, cheers. They say something in Mongolian. You repeat it. You've just proposed marriage to a goat. The goat accepts. You try to make conversation. You ask, so, what do you do for fun? A warrior says, conquest. You say, cool, cool. He asks what you do. You say, I make videos. He asks if that's a type of weapon. You're offered more fermented milk. You drink. You regret. You hallucinate Genghis Khan doing karaoke. The feast ends. You stand to leave. You bow. Too low. You knock over a ceremonial bowl. It spills. A child cries. You are now the spiller. You exit the yurt. The stars are bright. The goat follows. You are now married. You've been fletching arrows for days. Your fingers are calloused. Your feathers are symmetrical. A warrior inspects your work. He grunts. He says, these are good. You beam. You are now the competent one. Word spreads. You are summoned to the commander's tent. He holds one of your arrows. He says, you will now lead fletching. You say, I'm not qualified. He says, you're breathing. That's enough. You are given apprentices. They stare at you like you invented feathers. You try to teach. You say, glue here. One glues his hand to a goat. You are now the disappointed mentor. Your arrows are used in battle. They fly true. A general asks your name. You say, just a visitor. He says, you're now chief of supplies. You say, I'm just passing through. He says, not anymore. You are handed a ledger. It's in Mongolian. You nod confidently. You are now the illiterate administrator. You organize grain. You count horses. You assign tents. You accidentally schedule a feast during a funeral. You are now the confused planner. You try to resign. You say, I'm overwhelmed. They say, that's leadership. You say, I miss fletching. They say, too late. You are given a ceremonial hat. It's large. It smells like fermented authority. You wear it. The goat bows. You are now the hat person. At night, you lie awake. You dream of mediocrity. You long for anonymity. You miss being the perimeter guest. You consider sabotaging your own arrows. You whisper, maybe if I glue them backwards. The goat shakes its head. Even it knows that's treason. You wake up with a goat on your chest. A child is braiding your hair. Someone is snoring in harmony. You whisper, I need space. The yurt laughs. Privacy doesn't exist here. The Mongol lifestyle is communal, efficient, and deeply suspicious of anyone who wants to be alone. You step outside. A warrior follows. He says, where are you going? You say, just Out. He nods. He follows. You walk to the river. A grandmother joins you. She brings laundry. You are now the laundry companion. You try to meditate. A child sits beside you. He asks if you're dead. You say, no, just thinking. He says, that's weird. You are now the thinker. You sneak behind a hill. You sit. You breathe. A goat appears. It stares. You are now the goat's secret. You return to camp. You enter the yurt. It's full. Someone is cooking. Someone is singing. Someone is sharpening a blade. You sit in the corner. A man sits beside you. He says, you look lonely. You say, I'm fine. He says, we'll fix that. You are invited to a game. It involves wrestling, shouting, and fermented milk. You lose. You are now the milk wrestler. At night, you lie down. The yurt is warm. Bodies surround you. Someone talks in their sleep. Someone dreams loudly. You whisper, I miss walls. The goat snorts. You dream of silence. You wake up to a drum. It's morning. You are handed a broom. You sweep with 6 others. You are now the synchronized sweeper. You arrive in camp wearing your finest travel gear, breathable linen, moisture-wicking socks, a tasteful earth-tone tunic that says, I read history blogs. You feel prepared. You feel stylish. You feel like someone who might be mistaken for a minor noble. You are wrong. The first person who sees you is a child. He points. He laughs. He calls over his friends. They gather around you like you're a traveling jester who forgot his act. One pokes your synthetic fabric and asks if it's made from bird skin. You say no. He looks disappointed. A warrior approaches. He's wearing a coat made from wolf fur, stitched with sinew, and decorated with the teeth of animals. He personally insulted before slaying. He looks at your outfit and squints. He asks if you're cold. You say no. He says you will be. You believe him. You try to blend in. You wrap a scarf around your head. It's paisley. A grandmother sees it and gasps. She asks if you're mourning a chicken. You say no. She nods solemnly and walks away. You are now the accidental mourner. You attempt to upgrade your look. You borrow a fur cloak. It smells like ambition and goat. You wear it proudly. A man tells you it belonged to his cousin, who was eaten by wolves. You ask if the wolves returned the cloak. He says no. You are now wearing a mystery. You try to clean your boots. They're modern, waterproof, and designed for hiking. A boy asks if they're armor. You say sort of. He throws a rock at them. They hold. He nods. You are now the armored one, but only below the ankle. You ask if there's a tailor. A woman says, yes, but he only works in leather, bone, and the occasional bear. You ask if he can make something subtle. She laughs. You are now the misunderstood minimalist. You sit by the fire, hoping your outfit will warm up to the culture. A man sits beside you. He's wearing a tunic made from horsehide and confidence. He asks what your clothes say about you. You say comfort. He says that's not a personality. You are now the bland one. That night, you lie in your borrowed cloak, surrounded by warriors who dress like thunderclouds and legends. You dream of fashion shows, where the runway is mud and the models snarl. You wake up cold, stylish, and deeply unfashionable. You wake up to the sound of hooves, not distant, poetic hooves, immediate, aggressive hooves. A horse is standing over you, chewing something judgmental. You blink. It blinks back. You are now awake. The sun has not risen. The camp is already bustling. Fires crackle. Warriors sharpen blades. Children chase chickens with military precision. You sit up, hoping someone will say it's okay to go back to sleep. No one does. A man jogs past, carrying a saddle and a spear. He yells something about the morning hunt. You are now the unprepared one. You try to lie back down. A woman throws a bundle of sticks at you. She says it's for firewood. You say you don't know how to make a fire. She says that's a personal problem. You are now the cold one with chores. You wander toward the edge of camp, hoping for solitude. A boy hands you a rope and points at a distant horse. He says it ran away. You ask why. He says it's spirited. You are now the designated horse retriever. You chase the horse. It does not respect you. It runs in circles, mocking your cardio. You trip over a rock. The horse watches. You are now the humbled one. You return to camp, dragging the rope, but no horse. A warrior pats your shoulder and says, "You'll do better tomorrow." You ask if tomorrow starts later. He laughs. You are now the misunderstood optimist. You try to sneak a nap behind a tent. A goat finds you. It climbs onto your chest and settles in. You are now the goat mattress. You ask someone if there's a designated rest period. He says rest is for the dead. You ask if that's a proverb. He says no, it's a warning. You are now the slightly concerned one. You attempt to yawn discreetly. A grandmother sees it and hands you a bowl of fermented mare's milk. She says it will wake you up. You drink it. It does. You are now the alert and mildly nauseous one. You sit by the fire, hoping for a moment of peace. A man sits beside you and starts sharpening a blade. He says he's preparing for the afternoon skirmish. You ask if you're involved. He says everyone is. You are now the involuntary participant. That night, you lie down early, exhausted and emotionally bruised. You dream of alarm clocks, blackout curtains, and a world where mornings begin with coffee instead of combat. You wake up before dawn to the sound of someone yelling about a missing yak. And if you're still awake, still wondering why sleep feels like a forbidden luxury, just remember, in the Mongol Empire, rest is earned, not scheduled, and you, my friend, have not earned it. You sit down for dinner. You're hungry. You're hopeful. You're about to be humbled. A bowl is placed in front of you. It's steaming. It smells like ambition and barnyard. You ask what it is. Someone says it's stew. You ask what kind. They say yes. You're now the confused diner. You take a bite. It's chewy. It's sour. It's possibly blinking. You chew slowly, hoping the texture will improve. It doesn't. A warrior beside you finishes his bowl in 3 gulps and asks if you re-saving yours for winter. You're now the slow one. You try to be polite. You say it's interesting. A grandmother hears you and beams. She says it's her special recipe, passed down from a line of women who believed seasoning was a sign of weakness. You are now the honored guest and the victim. Someone hands you a cup. It's filled with fermented mare's milk. You sip. It tastes like regret and electricity. Your eyes water. Your soul briefly leaves your body. A child asks if you like it. You nod. He says you're brave. You're now the brave liar. You ask if there's bread. A man laughs and hands you a slab of dried curd. It's harder than your moral compass. You bite it. Your jaw files a complaint. You are now the dental risk. You try to sneak a snack from your travel pouch. A granola bar. It's oat-based. It's innocent. A warrior sees it and asks if it's bait. You say no. He takes it anyway. He feeds it to his horse. The horse sneezes. You are now the failed provider. You ask if there's dessert. A woman hands you a boiled root. It's beige. It tastes like history. You ask if it's sweet. She says it's nutritious. You are now the disappointed one. You try to compliment the meal. You say it's hearty. A man says it's survival. You nod. You are now the philosophical eater. Later, you're offered a delicacy. It's a sheep's eyeball. It's considered a gift. You hesitate. Everyone watches. You eat it. It bursts. You ascend. You are now the initiated. That night, you lie down with a stomach full of mystery and a mouth full of memories. You dream of menus, condiments, and a world where food comes with labels and mercy. You wake up to the sound of someone boiling hooves. You are introduced to your horse. It is majestic. It is muscular. It is staring at you like it knows you're not ready. You approach with confidence borrowed from childhood pony rides and YouTube tutorials. The horse snorts. You are now the overconfident one. You try to mount. Your foot misses the stirrup. Your knee finds your chin. You are halfway on, halfway off, and entirely judged. A child, watching nearby, whispers something about balance. You are now the unstable spectacle. You finally get on. The saddle feels like a medieval torture device, designed by someone who hated comfort and had strong opinions about posture. You grip the reins like they're instructions written in a language you don't speak. The horse begins to move. You are now the passenger. It trots. You bounce. It gallops. You ascend. Your spine writes a resignation letter. You are now airborne, briefly, and then horizontal. You hit the ground with a sound that attracts attention and mild applause. A warrior walks over and asks if you're testing gravity. You say yes. He nods. You are now the experimental one. You try again. This time, you stay on. The horse senses your desperation and begins to trot in circles. You lean left. It goes right. You lean right. It stops. You are now the confused navigator. Someone shouts that it's time for formation riding. You ask what that means. They say it's like dancing, but with hooves and danger. You join the line. Your horse decides to freestyle. You are now the jazz soloist in a military ballet. You attempt to turn. The horse turns. You do not. You are now the separated duo. A grandmother offers advice. She says to become one with the horse. You try. The horse disagrees. You are now the rejected soulmate. You ask if there's a beginner's group. A man says yes, but it's for children and goats. You consider joining. You are now the humble applicant. That night, you lie down with bruises in places you didn't know could bruise. You dream of saddles made of memory foam and horses that respect your boundaries. You wake up to the sound of hooves and laughter. You are handed a bow. It's beautiful. It's curved like ambition and carved with stories of conquest. You hold it like a fragile artifact. A warrior sees you and frowns. He says it's not a violin. You are now the delicate one. You notch your first arrow. It wobbles. You pull the string. It creaks. You release. The arrow flies sideways, hits a tree, and startles a goat. The goat glares. You are now the goat's nemesis. A child nearby hits the bullseye. Twice. Blindfolded, you ask how. He shrugs and says he practices between chores. You are now the underachiever. You try again. This time, the arrow loops in the air like it's auditioning for a dance recital. It lands softly in a puddle. A warrior walks over and asks if you're trying to water the ground. You say no. He nods slowly. You are now the misunderstood gardener. You ask for tips. A woman says to become one with the bow. You try. The bow disagrees. You are now the rejected soulmate again. You adjust your stance. You squint. You breathe. You release. The arrow grazes a tent. Someone inside yells. You apologize. They say it's fine. You are now the accidental home invader. You ask if there's a beginner's group. A man says yes, but it's mostly toddlers and birds. You consider joining. You are now the humble applicant. You finally hit the target. Barely. The arrow sticks to the edge like it's clinging for dear life. A warrior claps once. You feel proud. He says it was wind-assisted. You are now the weather-dependent archer. You try horseback archery. You mount the horse. You draw the bow. The horse moves. You panic. The arrow flies. It hits a tree. The tree was not the target. You are now the arboreal threat. That night, you lie down with sore shoulders and a bruised ego. You dream of arrows that obey, targets that forgive, and a world where archery comes with training wheels. You wake up to the sound of someone hitting 5 bullseyes before breakfast. You are invited to a gathering. There's food, fire, and a circle of warriors preparing to sing. You smile politely, hoping it's optional. It's not. A man hands you a bowl of fermented mare, S-milk, and says it will loosen your throat. You drink. It loosens everything. You are now the gurgling one. The first singer begins. His voice is deep, ancient, and sounds like thunder, arguing with a mountain. You are moved. You are intimidated. You are now the emotionally overwhelmed spectator. The next singer performs a throat chant. It's layered, eerie, and somehow sounds like 2 wolves harmonizing inside a cave. You try to clap. A child tells you that clapping is for babies. You are now the infant enthusiast. Your turn arrives. You stand. You clear your throat. It sounds like a squirrel sneezing. You begin to sing. It's shaky. It's off-key. It's heartfelt. A goat nearby walks away. You are now the rejected bard. You try again. This time, you attempt a Mongol folk tune. You mispronounce every word. A grandmother winces. A warrior tilts his head. A baby cries. You are now the cultural misunderstanding. Someone offers you a drum. You hit it. It echoes. You feel powerful. You hit it again. It breaks. You are now the percussion hazard. You ask if there's a beginner's group. A man says yes, but it's mostly for people who've lost their voices in battle. You consider joining. You're now the honorary casualty. You sit down, hoping to fade into the background. A woman asks if you'd like to try a duet. You say yes. She sings like a storm. You sing like a confused bird. She finishes. You apologize. She nods. You are now the duet imbalance. Later, someone starts a chant. Everyone joins in. You hum quietly. A warrior hears you and says, "Humming is for horses." You stop. You are now the silenced one. That night, you lie down with a sore throat and a bruised sense of rhythm. You dream of auto-tune, gentle melodies, and a world where singing off-key doesn't summon judgment. You wake up to the sound of someone throat singing while sharpening a blade. The fire crackles. The warriors gather. It's storytelling hour, not for entertainment, but for legacy. You sit among them, clutching your tail like a fragile egg. A man begins. His story is about a battle, a betrayal, and a horse that knew too much. Everyone listens. No one blinks. You are now the intimidated listener. The next tale is from a grandmother. It's about a storm, a lost goat, and a prophecy carved into a yak's horn. It's gripping. It's poetic. It ends with a moral about humility and fermented cheese. You clap. A child tells you clapping is for endings. You are now the premature applauder. Your turn arrives. You clear your throat. You begin a story about a time you got lost in a mall. The word mall echoes awkwardly. A warrior asks if it's a kind of battlefield. You say yes. You are now the accidental mythmaker. You try to build tension. You describe escalators like ancient machines. You mention food courts as tribal gathering zones. Someone asks if the food was hunted. You say no. Confusion spreads. You are now the cultural enigma. You attempt humor. You say you once mistook a mannequin for your cousin. A woman asks if your cousin is made of wood. You say no. She nods slowly. You are now the surrealist. You reach the climax. You found your way out of the mall. A man asks if you claimed victory. You say you bought socks. Silence follows. You are now the anticlimax. Someone offers feedback. They say your story lacked blood, betrayal, and horses. You nod. You are now the peaceful disappointment. You ask if stories must be dramatic. A warrior says stories must echo through generations. You ask if socks echo. He says only if they're stolen. You are now the confused philosopher. Later, someone tells a tale about a man who told a bad story and was sent to herd yaks until he found a better one. You ask if that's a joke. They say no. You are now the potential yak apprentice. That night, you lie down beside the fire, your story still echoing faintly in your mind. You dream of tales that soar, of listeners who nod, and of endings that don't involve livestock. You drift off to the sound of someone recounting a battle where the moon wept and the arrows sang. And if you're still awake, still narrating in your head, still wondering how storytelling became a survival skill, just remember, in the Mongol Empire, words are weapons, stories are currency, and bedtime tales are judged like duels. Sleep well, quiet bard. Tomorrow, the yaks await.